Okay, thanks for making the time. Could you start by introducing yourself?
Thank you for inviting me. My name is Maria and I am a stone. Basalt.
Sorry, but before we get into the questions, I just want to check something.
Yes, sure.
Whenever I talk to someone, I try to connect through their eyes. It's considered quite rude to look at the wrong part of the body. So just to be sure, those 2 marks on your side look to me almost like eyes. Am I correct in speaking to these?
It may be comforting for you to try and find a face in me, but this is just your imagination. I don't really have a top or a bottom, a beginning or an end. I just am. I think the fact that you're seeing a face says more about you than it says about me. I think you are searching for connection. Anyway, my eyes are actually scars from my journey to this spot. I had a bit of a rough trip.
Okay, thanks for clearing that up. There is a bit to unpack there, but how about we start with the rough journey you mentioned? What exactly happened?
Well, to cut a long story short, I started off as a hot molten lava inside the earth. I exploded to the surface, cooled off, and here I am.
It sounds quite dramatic. So how did you end up on this island?
Well, very recently, only 125 years ago. The Dutch government needed to build a defense line here, and I was a perfect fit. But it's less that I am on the island. It's more that I am the island. I mean, we are all the island.
I'm the island.
You are the island, but the island is also you.
And when I leave?
Well, rather than worrying about before or after, I believe it's best to be in the now. This is the most precious thing.
Yeah, okay. Well, back to the now. I wanted to address this negative stigma surrounding stones today. We talk of the Stone Age, which I guess was really your time to shine. You were valuable as a cutting instrument or fire-starting tool or a weapon. Do you feel now that you are perhaps less useful than before? That you have lost your purpose?
I think the thing to remember is that really there is no purpose. Humans have a strange fetish to see the world as something to be used to help them progress. But progress where?
Well, progression, I suppose, is to improve, to live longer, be smarter, happier.
It goes back to what I was saying before. The more you focus on becoming, the less you remember to just be.
I see that you really focus on the moment, but I have to say that I find the idea of just sitting at one location a bit boring.
I don't really experience boredom. All of my existence is observation and reflection.
I guess it's less about boredom, but I imagine you just feel this constant restlessness. Right now, for instance, I'm having this conversation, but swirling around my mind are all these thoughts. How late is it? Will I miss my ferry back? Did I lock my bike this morning? Have I seen everything on the island yet? What if someone else comes down this track? Am I in the way? Is it okay to go swimming here? I wonder if it's cold. I do find it hard to be totally here.
Sounds busy in there.
I suppose this busyness comes from the pressure to make good decisions. As a stone, you don't have that. You're always pushed around and the choices are made for you. Like you said before, we wanted an island, so you were cut to size and then placed here, totally out of your control.
It's curious how much control you think you have.
How so?
See those boats out there with their sails?
Yeah.
Who is in control there?
Well, the captains of the boats, I suppose.
What I see is the wind in control, or at least in a dance of control with the captain. Each is equal.
Yeah, I suppose I can see that.
But to take it further, just think about us standing here right now. We are clinging to this earth that is spinning around, and there is nothing you can do about it. As the day goes on into the night and the seasons change, it is you that has to adapt. The world has been doing this before you came here, and will be doing this long after you leave. In this sense, I don't think anyone has control.
I noticed that you introduced yourself as a stone, but is this technically correct?
What do you mean?
Well, you are a stone, but at the same time, are you also a rock, a pebble, or a boulder? One definition I read said that a stone can be picked up in one hand, but a rock needs two, and a boulder cannot be picked up at all. But then I thought, this means your title changes depending on the size of one's hands, or how strong they are. It just seems like your whole existence as either a rock or a stone or something else is really subjective. So, what are you exactly?
Well, there is no solid answer. And I'm not sure you need to worry so much about it. Everything doesn't need to be so certain or require a label. When you've been around a while, you realize that the more you know, the less you understand. And you do learn to be okay with that.
It's just sort of unsettling to me that there is no truth, or that the truth changes for every person. I suppose these labels just make me feel comfortable, sort of like I was saying before, that everything's under control.
And as I said before, it's really not under control. Let me ask you something. Why is it that when you are by the water and you see a stone or a rock or a pebble or whatever you want to call us, you feel the need to pick us up and throw us in the water?
It's not something I've ever really thought about, but yeah, I have to admit when I first got here I saw the water and then I saw the rocks or stones or, well, you guys, and I did have the urge to throw something. I'm not really sure where that comes from, but I'm not going to throw you though, okay?
For both me and you, this was a moment where anything could have happened. I find it's better to accept this chaos than to pretend it doesn't exist.
So I read during my research that to avoid a potential climate crisis, humans have begun removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere by storing it in basalt rocks under the water. What do you make of this?
Well, sure. Why not? This would be a new experience for me, but I'm willing to give it a try, and it's about time you did something, right? The high amounts of carbon dioxide causing this crisis. It comes from you.
Well, you say you, but it wasn't really me. There have been plenty of people before me who steered us towards this crisis. I think it's pretty unfair to point at me and say I'm responsible.
I'm curious which part of me you think is doing the pointing. You can perhaps tell me about this later. Right now, I'm more interested about this argument you're making and what you think will be the result. While you stand around deciding who is responsible, things just gradually get worse.
But live in the now, right? Perhaps this is a problem for the future.
Well, the future is now.
But you just said before, don't think about the future.
I also said, the more you know, the less you understand. The future is the now because the choices we make in the present affect the future. I know it's uncomfortable to hear, but humans have this magical thinking, this belief that everything will sort itself out. But there also needs to be action. Often the thing you're avoiding in the future is the thing you need to do right now.
We, as in humans, when we are young, we have this attitude of playfulness and a softness. But as we grow older, we become more cynical and harden our exterior. You've been around for...
Thousands of years.
Yeah, thousands of years. Can you relate to this?
Well, for me, I'd probably say it's the opposite, actually. When I started out, I was kind of this fast-moving, hot-headed type. But over the years, I've cooled down. I think it perhaps has a lot to do with the water here. Once it was a wild, salty ocean, and now it's a fresh, still lake. My constant interactions with the water has smoothed my rough edges, and I think my attitude matches this.
As we've been talking, I've noticed that every now and then a bigger wave comes along and nearly reaches you. So while it is smoothing your edges, it's also slowly eroding you, bringing you closer to the end.
I suppose I think about these waves in a different way. The end will come for everything and everyone one day. Why should I fear that which can only exist when I do not? The water for me is more about connection, and actually a sign that the end is just the beginning.
How so?
Well, have a look at the water in front of you now. Each wave that crashes around me, its source of energy first happened long ago, probably began from one of the boats passing by, or perhaps the wind, or maybe someone throwing a stone in the water over on the other side there. But these things, they have already ended, but their memory lives on in these waves.
And what exactly is this memory saying to you?
It's less about what its original meaning was, and more about recognizing that every action, no matter how small, has an impact, even if you are no longer around to see this. I'm not meaning to lecture you here, it's just when you're around a long time, you notice these things.
Yes, and speaking of time, we should probably start to wrap things up here. We've been talking a while now.
We have? Feels like we just got started.
Well, one final question. As someone who has a long time to think and reflect on life, what is one piece of wisdom about life you can leave me with?
Currently, and in another 1,000 years, I could be saying something different, you know? I think the key is to be positive.
Positivity. Okay. Sorry, I was just maybe expecting something a bit more.
Yes, I know. You wanted an answer, and I've given you an attitude. But what I mean here is that staying positive doesn't mean that you have to be happy all the time. It means that even on hard days, you know that there are better ones to come.
Okay, I like that.
And one final question for you then. How are you going now with all those thoughts you had before? You started this conversation quite busy.
Well, now you mention them, I haven't checked my phone in a while, and I really hope I haven't missed the ferry.
Before you run off, would you like to try to be in the now with me?
I can try.
Find yourself a comfortable spot. Sitting, standing, lying down. And just be there. Then look around. Just look. Don't interpret. See the light, the shapes, colors, and textures. Be aware of the silent presence of each thing. Be aware of the space that allows everything to be. Listen to the sounds. Don't judge them. Listen to the silence underneath the sounds. Touch something, anything, and feel and acknowledge its being. Observe the rhythm of your breathing. Feel the air flowing in and out. Feel the life energy inside your body. Allow everything to be within and without. Allow the isness of all things. Move deeply into the now.